trying to create a platform to educate people around government, governance. And so our priority, which is what I had sent you and I invited you, is around the 1st of November elections, to make sure that people make informed decisions when they go to the poll, and also to encourage that if you are still on the fence about who to vote for, there's other alternatives. And I think that's what our democracy has afforded, especially in the past few years, that we now have independent candidates like you. So welcome to State Defined. The platform is State Defined. I had promised the viewers that we would be discussing independent candidacy and what it means for the democracy. Everyone, this is Nhongo Solo. You're a ward councillor for Ward 82 in Ikuruleni for the One SA movement.
Not really, but
okay.
I'll explain.
All right, great. Because I think that's the clarity that's also needed.
Yes.
So you can just introduce yourself and also explain who you're affiliated with, if there's any affiliation, and what that means for you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the platform. Thank you to the viewers as well, and we greet everyone who's listening. So like you said, I'm now solo contest in local government elections.
Yeah.
As an independent candidate in 182, what we mean by that is that I am not affiliated with any political party or any organization.
Okay.
I come as a community member.
All right.
With the aim to represent the community members, regardless of the political color you are wearing, regardless of the political regalia and affiliation that we have. So we believe that for too long the voices of young people have been suppressed, they have been undermined, they have been modified. Exactly. And we got to a stage where, as the future, we need to stop crying and take action.
Yeah.
So One South Africa also is an advocacy organization that supports independent candidates, both from an independent perspective or from Section 15A. What we mean by that is that I, as an independent, can directly go and register to IEC as an independent candidate, and I can appear in one ballot paper, which is a ward council ballot paper. And then I become the only human being that's on the ballot paper, because the rest are then political parties. So because I'm not affiliated with any organization, whether of Section 15A or any political party, I don't have a logo.
It'll be your face.
Exactly. So the opportunity that Ward 82 members have is to receive 2 ballot papers. So I have come more like Jesus when he says, so I'm not here to separate them from their political parties. So all we are saying is that for once, vote for unity, for once, vote for change, for once, vote for restoration and development of our community. And on the second ballot paper, then you can begin to vote for a party that you think can also bring change. We can call it a proportional representative party. So when we go to council, then we find independent candidates together with councillors from political parties. But at the end of the day, we are now all councillors because the campaign is over. There is no definition of who's what and all of that. Then when we speak of Section 15A, we are speaking of independent candidates who then decided to say, no, we want to contest, but we don't want to lose the PR seat. So they had to form a small community organization. So we can still call ourselves, we can call Ward 82 Community Organization. And we then register with IEC and we become a Section 15A organization. So I'm still an independent, but then we formed an organization. So it's in that regard when we speak of independent candidates and the role that One South Africa is playing in connection with
it's just advocating for people, and also I suppose educating, because I think independent candidacy is still new and misunderstood by a lot. So I think this is why it's very important to have you here. And I gather you were also a member of ARAG, I think, in 2014 elections. And so the question for me there is, why the route of independence out of a political party? What do you think you will serve better out of being affiliated with a political party?
I think it's important for us to highlight that independent candidates for local elections is nothing new. However, it becomes new to the societal spectrum. It's only getting known now. Because as we grow up, we are deceived. I think deliberately so by the educational system, the miseducational system, the schooling system. We are deliberately deceived so that we think that everything has got to do with political parties.
There's only one way.
Exactly. And so when we discovered that, because I'm running an NPO youth organization, when we discovered that, we thought we should be loud about these things. But I joined AHA South Africa. I've always worked with Dr. Mampela from citizens movement. When it was just a movement in Cape Town, and we were trying to bring the movement to Gauteng, and we were doing seminars. What we did most was voter education and political education with the organization, together with our Jerome. But what then transpired was that people were like, no, you need to step into the political space, because at that time the whole independent thing was not well known. So when she started Ahang South Africa, she recruited us to Ahang South Africa, and we were happy to join. And we served in Ahang South Africa. But I must emphasize that in political parties, there is no space for young people. You are used as voting tools, voting cows. You need to be called when you need to fill up taxis and buses so that the stadiums are full. But when it's decision-making time, our voices are suppressed. I must also emphasize that there's a lot of patriarchy in the political space, where men feel entitled to rule over women. And we should acknowledge that it's also a historical problem that is existing today, and that seems to be a problem that will shape the future. And that is why you see organizations that like feminism that are trying to then address the issues of patriarchy. But we must also be careful when we speak of feminism also, to not define it as a rule of woman over man, because then we are getting ourselves into a vicious cycle where we need to advocate and fight for a just gender society in our space, because each gender has its own role, and you cannot want to overlap each other's role forcefully. Yes, so that's the role I played in Ahang. I was the chairperson of the branch, and I was the provincial leader of Ahang, eventually a national but for interim. And when Dr. Mampela Rampela decided to resign, I saw a lot of power mongering amongst men, and we started losing the principles of the organization. And one thing about me, I'm not loyal to a party, I'm loyal to principles.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important that what you touched on when we started this discussion is the voice of the youth not being very loud or being suppressed, and strategically so perhaps. And I think it's also coming out in the numbers. I was looking at the registration numbers yesterday, and I think it is quite concerning that we claim to be a woke generation, and we want to be politically involved, but the number of young people that have registered in the 18 to 30 cohort is worrying. Is it because what you're saying now, to say we've kind of disengaged from political parties because we don't feel represented there? And is this why you think you will be better placed to serve your community as a young person who lives in the community that you want to serve in? Is that your vision to bring back young voters on the voters roll? Because we are a young population, and it's worrying that people are not registering to even vote.
I think the fact that young people are not registered to vote is a true reflection of the crisis we have in South Africa.
Exactly.
Firstly, we must hold our government accountable for the lack of voter education in schools.
Absolutely.
How do you quickly introduce sexual comprehensive education without introducing the codes of why that exists? Exactly, which is education, which is politics. We must also hold IEC accountable for lack of voter education. The question is, what are they doing in between where there are no elections? They're not literally doing anything.
Absolutely.
And so when we started realizing that there's no platform for young people, that's when we formed our Force of Change. And that our NPO youth organization thoroughly focuses on how politics affects us on a daily basis, and we discovered that people don't know much about politics. So, and also the fact that we are in local government elections, but we are seeing polls that have precedence of political parties. What does that have to do with local government elections? So the deliberate psychological wiring is upset, and we need to change the scenario. The reason we are contesting as independent candidates is to conscientize the society that there is an alternative, that independent is the better way, but also to remind them that the person that might contest elections should be a person that resides within your community. The person on the polls should be the person that you see on a daily basis, before elections, during elections, and after elections. Because we should not take politics as if it's just a career. You get employed, you go and buy a car and a house somewhere else, and you are gone. So that's what we are trying to bring back to the minds of our community members. I think the message now may start at a smaller scale, but it's making a huge noise. And it's not ending up here today. Maybe we're going to continue even post the 1st of November.
Which I'm very grateful for, and I'm glad that you also mentioned that as an independent candidate, the best interest should be for the people where you reside in. So my question to you then is, what are your priority challenges that you want as soon as you're in office or in part of council for Ward 82?
Yes.
What is stressing for you to make sure that you address in the next term?
Yes. Ward 82 is the biggest ward in Kwazulu.
Yes.
It's a very vast ward. Due to demarcation, they've added Rapan within Sakan, they've added Kwatema within Sakan.
Yeah.
So we have 5 mission pillars.
Okay.
And the last mission pillar, called social welfare and safety, needs to address each area per their specifics and per their needs.
Okay.
Because social ills in one VD are different from another VD.
Absolutely.
So, but what is common is that education is the fundamental liberator for everyone in the community, for everyone in the province, and for everyone in the country eventually. But for us to define education as a national issue then becomes a mistake. Because when charity begins at home, home is it's a household within the community before it becomes part of the community.
Yeah.
So education becomes the fundamental liberator. And we are saying that education must start from a very young age. Early childhood development centers must exist in every ward. They must be free and they must be compulsory. So kids must not roam around in the streets because their parents can't afford fees. So we must make sure that they're free and they are compulsory. But also, kids mustn't go there just to sleep. We must ensure that the education given there is quality education. And we must create reading as a hobby, as a norm, as a meaningful reading. So it's important that we do that. When we get to schools, I think township schools in my ward, all of them from primary school to high school, they don't have a conducive environment, both for teaching and learning. You know, so it's one thing we need to address. We have already created relations with schools. We must ensure that when you pass Mamelo Secondary School, Nigel High School, it's this beautiful school because it's Guma Saba. So we must bring that dignity back to our schools, so that even now when you're a learner or a student, you look forward to go to school. You know, you don't feel like you are obligated and all of that. So we need to ensure that our schools have that pure representation, both from the outside, which is a container, and from the inside, the content itself. So the sports facilities in schools must look proper and must exist. We must also have school halls, because it's also one of the things that brings about integration within the relationship with education of because if we call for a parents meeting and where there's no chairs and the ways are there, you know. So we must make sure we have school halls, but school halls are also made for fundraising for our schools. If we say we want free education, we know that nothing is entirely free. So we must find a way to fundraise. And if suburb schools or in private schools are able to do it through their school halls, through theatre nights, cultural nights, you know, entrepreneurship day, we must be able to bring those things into township schools, into public schools. So those are the priorities. But also we are saying, why are you getting educated? You are getting educated so that you live on a daily basis. So if you eat, they must teach you how to produce food. If you wear your clothes, they must teach you how to do clothes, how to sew and all of that. So we are saying that it's important that in schools we ensure that we instill skills. So there must be food gardens in schools for agricultural purposes. There must be subjects like sewing and carpentry. We are not going to be begging the government for that. We have young people that are unemployed. So while we ensure that we have incubation centers within our schools that will upskill the young people who are unemployed with skills, these young people must go to schools and empower the learners to do that. So we are going to create relations. It's not going to be a red tape issue. We are going to create relations. I think it's important to emphasize that schools are a community facility. So the communities must participate in schools equally. So it's very important. But how do we then access education? Not only in schools, but also through internet. So we must make sure that we put internet in our ward 82, which is fiber, something that is also currently happening, and it's a huge story that is taking place. But also we must make sure that we have libraries, both in schools and in our township. In the entire ward 82 does not have a library. The one next to us has been closed for a year. At the time it was opening at 8, it was closing at 4. At 8, learners are going to school. You know, at 4 they only coming back. And that library does not even have access to internet. So why is it there?
Why does it exist?
Exactly.
What does it exist for?
Exactly. So we must make sure that we have that, and we must make sure that we build those incubation centers where we upskill both the young and the old. I mean, if of which I'm going to address now. If I'm coming as a councillor and I want to build RDP houses, who is going to build them? Because people are not skilled.
Yeah.
So it's unfair that you finish school for 13 years with only a matric certificate. You don't have a driver's license. You don't have a skill. So we must make sure that they have driver's license, they have skill together with their matric certificate. Then the second mission pillar will be land. We are saying that land is also not a national issue. We are sitting on top of land and our local spaces in our communities. So if we want to build RDP houses, we must build dignified RDP houses. We must teach our community members that we don't buy an RDP house and we don't sell an RDP house. That is corruption because it has been so institutionalized that if you take a drive here in Sakana and go to an area called Extension 2, I promise you will find government employees in RDP houses, living inside RDP houses. And you question, how did they even qualify to get them? So we must make sure that we conscientize, teach each other about those things. But also we're saying not everyone qualifies for an RDP house. We have young people who have jobs, proper jobs, and they won't qualify. So you find them ending up renting forever or bonding themselves to a tree for 20 years to pay for a bond. So we're saying we're going to give them land. And they must build, not put shacks, because that's not our African identity. So they must build houses. It's important they do that. But we must use land also for sports and recreation. If you take a drive up here, there's a new park that was just renovated. Before it was renovated, when I was young, we used to play netball there. We used to play soccer there. And now if you go up there, they forgot about soccer during the renovation. They forgot about the netball court. Instead, they put a map stand together with Imizwingo for the children. So while we are buying that side as elders and drinking, the kids are playing, and you can imagine what kind of generation we are producing. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So it's important that we do sports and recreation. Then we also have health system. We don't have a clinic in our ward. We only have one clinic in such a big ward with 16,000 people plus. So, and that clinic is very small. It's not for 24 hours. It has bad health hazards if you go in. So we must make sure that we build a clinic, a 24-hour clinic. But as an immediate solution, we must have mobile clinics. We must also, as Black people, understand that the plantation of trees is important. It's part of the health system.
Absolutely.
Especially because our world is surrounded by firms like mining and all of that. So the pollution there must be at least eliminated through the trees and the absorption of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So that is very important. And then we have an issue of electricity, and the last one will be social welfare and safety. I normally address them together because electricity, we acknowledge that it's a national issue. Each area is then supplied by two different institutions, either by ESCOM or by municipality. We must establish which one is more effective and advocate for the one that is more effective for our ward. But also as ward councillors, we have access to information like load shedding, first-hand access, load shedding and load reduction. I must be able to have time and transparent enough to tell people about it so that they don't find out with their fridges now they suddenly trip and they're no longer working. So it's important that I share information. But also with electricity, we have a problem in our society where there is a serious drug abuse. And there's a drug called Nhongo that is becoming a pandemic in our spaces. So we need to address that. We need to save our brothers and sisters because they are the future of tomorrow. They are the mothers and fathers of tomorrow. But how do we save them? We know that on a daily basis they are carrying e-waste. And when they take that waste to recycling or to a scrapyard, we need to partner with them, those scrapyards to say, one, please be compliant. Don't take everything and anything that comes
in.
Exactly. Two, can you make space where we can feed these guys? Three, please make space for psychologists that will be full-time in. As they receive, they get to counsel them. But lastly, let's have skilled people who can then teach them how to produce electricity using waste. Then we can have waste electricity that can be piloted within our ward. We don't need to consult with the government to do that. So that is very important. Then we have the last one, which is social welfare and safety. That is very important. How we're going to execute that, we must ensure that each and every area has a committee. Something that existed long ago when we had PCLs, when we had whistleblowers within our communities. We must restore that so that committees, each and every area, identify issues that are very important, that are a priority, and we start with those issues. One area may need a street, but another area may just need a drainage system for the street that exists. Another area does not have street lights. Another may have, but they are not working. Another may have an issue of crime. another may have an issue of GBV. So the street committees must then be functional in that regard. But the street committee must reflect the ward committee.
Yes.
This is another advantage to be an independent candidate, is that I'm not coming from a branch structure. So I'm not coming with 10 people. One is a secretary, treasurer.
Who doesn't know the issues.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you know. So as when I went on the first one, the second I call a community meeting, and the community meeting must elect, appoint, and nominate their area committees together with the ward committee. Now the ward committee get paid by the state.
Yes.
So they're equally accountable, equally responsible to the society.
And I like that most of your pillars, if not all of them, are centered around the community. And I think that's very important for accountability and transparency of how government is run, because we have lived in the past 10 to 15 years with our municipalities really ravaging finances, and we don't know who to hold to account.
True.
Would you imagine that, or is the vision for independent candidates, is that the stronghold to say, because this is someone where you can just knock and say, Nhongo, you guys promised that we would have a street by this time. It's not here, but the money there is done, you know. Whereas, as you're saying, as a party, people are from branches, and they probably don't even live in Zakani, you know. Is that what do you envision the goal of independent candidates to be? Is that people can come and say, you promised us this, what's happening?
Direct voting, direct accountability. The biggest issue with councillors that are coming from political parties, you have a problem with them, you don't find them at their home.
Exactly.
Secondly, you don't find them in their offices. Thirdly, you must write to a branch structure that is the friend or an ally to the councillor, they want to respond. By the time you write to the regional structure, is 3 years later, they're not responding. At the point it gets to the president, he's too busy to be dealing with the issues of Board 82.
Then we're voting again.
Exactly. And which one has greater value? To give accountability to 10 people or 15 people who are part of the branch structure, or to give accountability directly to the community, that consists of 16,000 people. That is the power of independent candidates, is that you account to everyone, regardless of the color t-shirt they are wearing. Because we see councillors who come, they do door to door to all our homes when they want our votes. By the time they are in a councillor position or seat, they only go back to their political party. They only report to their political party. Exactly. They only employ their constituency. You must be a card-carrying member for you to be employed or part of a project. And by the way, they're still undermining you, because these jobs they give you for 3 months, and then the employment is done. You're not even empowered to have a proper skill after that for you to start something. All they give you, big enough for sure. Otherwise, the subcontractor is someone from another area, not to even mention the contractor, way outside the province even at times. So it's important that we start addressing these issues. We know that there's a lot of propaganda taking place, that you are wasting your vote with independent candidates. How will they account? How will they get a budget? We need to educate our society that no councillor has a budget in their account. So we are independent candidates now. By the time we get to council chamber, we are all councillors.
You have a share and a right
to the
equitable share.
Exactly. And that budget, it's so sad that the councillors, they take a mandate from their political parties. We as independent candidates take mandate directly from the community. If the community says, no, the first priority now is a clinic, it's a clinic. If they say, we don't want fiber that is an aerial, we want an underground fiber, that's the priority. You are taking mandate from the community, and I think it's the best advantage that the community can ever see. We are saying to every community member, wherever you are, don't even stress about what independent candidate means at this point. Look for a human face on your ballot. Look for your human face and vote for that independent.
And one that you can relate to your challenges. And just to go back on your point on door-to-door campaigns, I read your paper, your note from the NPO that you mentioned, Abacha for Change, talking about the possible impact that COVID-19 would have on voter turnout and what that has meant in other countries. I mean, we saw the Concord ruling that said we are fine to go ahead, and you were happy with that ruling. Has it, however, impacted in any way in your campaigning? Do you still think that, you mentioned earlier as well as the IEC hasn't been innovative enough to accommodate firstly the pandemic and an ever-evolving technology that could allow for online voting, for mail voting? Has that affected how you guys campaigned the pandemic? are you still concerned about voter turnout on the 1st of November due to the pandemic?
Yes, that had a serious effect. In fact, IEC was a total sabotage. IEC came out and said they're ready for elections.
Yeah.
Whoever was whispering to their ears became a problem to IEC. Because then IEC began to change their tune and they were looking unready. They were starting to deliberately be unready. And that uncertainty that they kept creating, which is something we kept arguing, that you are creating uncertainty and people start losing interest as you're doing that. Because we don't know when is the voter registration weekend. We don't know if online registration weekend, when is it going to open, when is it going to close. And once people start losing interest, they move away from it. So yes, number one, it affected the voter registration turnout on its own. It was low, it was poor. So not only the voter registration turnout, even the voting day will also have an effect. Because I mean, we have elders who are not sure if IEC is ready, who are scared of this pandemic. But the biggest problem also that IEC got us into is that they were not interested in educating people about special voting. People still did not register for special voting. There are people who think that, so IEC will come, Mama, did you register? No, we're supposed to register. You know, so IEC was not serious about these elections. I don't know, they didn't believe elections would take place, and we kept shouting to them, IEC, you need to realize that elections are going to take place because no one is above the law.
The constitution.
No one is above and the constitution is the highest. You know, and at the point you want the court to change the constitution, the only way to change the constitution is to include the constituents, and that means it must go back to the public meetings, which is something that's not going to happen if you're worried about pandemic, COVID-19, that wants us to be less in numbers when we need, that needs social distancing, that need lots of health protocols. So I don't know, but IEC did not apply their mind enough. But for as long as you're an organization that does not have young people, you cannot be innovative.
No, absolutely. And for me, I think that's it for now, because I think you've given us a lot to think about in terms of the importance of the role of community. I said in my previous video when we were launching this platform that I don't think we realize that local government is perhaps the most important part of elections, because these are the people that influence and impact your day-to-day life. Like the fact that you have water and electricity depends on this kind of elections. And I really do hope that people go out to vote. Even if you don't know who to vote for, this is why we have this platform. We have people like Nhongo who will tell you what their plans are for you, and you can take that and think it through. I don't know if you also have a message for...
Yes, no, we want to encourage everyone to go out and vote. It's important. The community must realize that their vote is their right, that our forefathers died for us to be able to vote, that their vote is their voice, that which you advocate for, you should vote for, that their vote is their faith, for faith is the substance of things hoped for. So after voting, that which you have hoped for should come to realize.